Two battalion commanders in Russia's 5th Separate Guards Motor Rifle Brigade disappeared after formally complaining unit leadership orders mass assaults with no chance of success, traffics drugs and looted property, steals state funds, and tortures soldiers unenthusiastic about attacking, the independent Russian news agency Astra reported. The report said Major Yuri Burakov, call sign Sedoy, commander of 2nd Battalion, 95th Regiment, 5th Brigade, was summoned to brigade headquarters in the Russian-occupied city Donetsk on July 27th to discuss a complaint letter he sent to Army High Command in Moscow alleging criminal activity in the brigade. Burakov's spouse contacted the unit the next day because he didn't answer her calls. Unit leadership told her Burakov deserted, Donetsk news reports said. In September 2024, 4 members of 5th Brigade were charged with the murder of U.S. citizen and Texas resident Russell Bentley in Donetsk. He had been working as a war correspondent for the Moscow-controlled Sputnik news agency, but 5th Brigade soldiers mistook him as a spy. Bentley, 63, was tortured for more than 24 hours before he died under electroshock interrogation on April 8th. Peter Lundström, deputy chair of the Public Chamber Commission on Culture in the Kremlin-sponsored Donetsk People's Republic, in a July 30th comment on his Telegram channel, confirmed the Astra report about Burakov's disappearance. According to Lundström, Burakov had sent a detailed report to the highest military command and the prosecutor's office, alleging criminal activity and gross negligence in the unit. I have received information that requires a thorough investigation. Drug trafficking, robberies, looting, extortion, salary theft, trade in fuel and humanitarian aid, stolen vehicles, and other details that would make your hair stand on end, Lundström wrote. He said Burakov was the 2nd Battalion commander in the 5th Brigade who has disappeared in this way. Lundström called on brigade leadership not to zero, a slang expression for murder by reason of convenience, Burakov and the 2nd officer. It is not too late to fix things, Lundström pleaded. Sviatoslav Golikov, a Donetsk-based military blogger and Ukrainian supporting Russian troops, in a July 31st comment on the 2 officers' disappearance and leadership quality within the 5th Brigade, said that criminality was among the worst of all Russian units deployed to Ukraine, and that corruption and a culture of violence was so deeply embedded in the unit that investigators come down to Donetsk from Moscow to look into the 5th Brigade problems, and they never return. Russia's 5th Motor Rifle Brigade was formed from militia in the city Donetsk, fighting on the anti-Kiev side following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2014. The Kremlin inducted the unit into the Russian army in 2018. Russian leader Vladimir Putin awarded the 5th the Elite Guards status in December 2024. According to Ukrainian military reports, the last publicly known commander of the 5th Brigade, Major General Pavel Klemenko, died in an FPV drone strike on November 6, 2025. One of the most reliable accounts is that of Private Roman Okuntsov, a Russian felon volunteering to fight in a combat unit in exchange for commutation of his prison sentence, who was assigned to the 5th Brigade in October 2023 as a sniper. Surrendering to Ukrainian forces in early June 2025, Okuntsov told Ukrainian journalist Yuri Butusov extortion of money from soldiers was common practice in the unit. It's scary, especially when commanders send hundreds of soldiers into the wilderness and no one comes back, Okuntsov said. People are torn apart, that smell. It's not been war there for a long time, but just business. Okuntsov accused brigade leadership of concealing his status as a prisoner of war to avoid paying mandatory assistance payments to his family. A bribe to avoid military service costs $622, he said. The independent Russian media outlet Govorit Nemoskva, in April 2024, published an investigative article tracking 7 individual soldiers assigned to the 5th Brigade and missing for months. Soldiers' wives and mothers complained that their husbands and sons stopped communicating with them and that brigade leadership was doing nothing to determine whether the men were dead or alive. 5th Brigade's top officers have, according to Astra, operated a torture site on the premises of Petrovskaya coal mine number 421 near Donetsk since the mid-2010s. The most common tortures are holding a man in a dirt pit open to the elements, shocks with electricity, beatings, and mock executions. Reportedly, brigade leadership tortures soldiers and civilians at the Petrovskaya mine, as well as at a former secret police office in downtown Donetsk, to extort money from detainees, to change the minds of men unwilling to attack Ukrainian positions as punishment for failed attacks or lost military equipment, and to eliminate witnesses. One wife identifying herself as a resident of Vladikavkaz told Govorit Moskva, "Unit commanders, do not attempt to evacuate wounded soldiers. We understand what's going on in that unit. It's complete chaos." Interviews of 5th Brigade service member relatives published by Radio Liberty in November 2024 detailed charges of soldiers sent into combat while still wounded, failure by brigade leadership to recover the remains of soldiers killed in action, concealment by unit leadership of evidence of entire units having been wiped out in attacks, and diversion to unit leadership of dead soldiers' salaries. The independent group voenchast.ru, an NGO helping soldier relatives find missing service personnel, listed 150 men still assigned to 5th Brigade and no longer in contact with their families. A Friday Kyiv post-check of the group's site found. The most recent lost soldiers, Alexei Bodanin and Oleg Loganov, were reported missing by relatives. Russian state television on its most popular news talk show, Soloviev Live, in a May 27th broadcast, told Russian viewers content and reports regarding criminality and crushing casualties in 5th Brigade were fake news, and that news agencies and platforms alleging problems in the unit were guilty of Russophobia. Another North Korean-made 170-meter Texan self-propelled gun used by Russian forces has been destroyed by a HIMARS strike on the Eastern Front by the 14th Separate UAV Regiment. Wounded Russian soldiers are complaining that they experience unbearable conditions on slow evacuation trains that travel for days without air conditioning or medical assistance for the men on board. The pioneer of the reserve Telegram channel writes, "This is the current situation on trains that transport wounded soldiers. This train was traveling from Rostov, transporting everyone to hospitals, some for treatment, some for prosthetics. There are 1,000 plus people on the train. The air conditioners are not working, and the train constantly stops to let express trains pass. People are suffocating in such heat and stuffiness, and Russian Railways does not care. They let every train pass. They do not care about the people who are defending Russia. Guys with torn-off limbs and burns are lying in a carriage whose windows do not open. There are also nurses on the train who are supposed to regularly do bandages, give injections, etc. But according to the stories of a friend of mine, such a conductor came, did bandages for 2 people and left. There are no injections. The soldiers themselves are forced to look for volunteers in the cities who can bring the necessary drugs and injections to the station. Everything themselves, everything at their own expense. This is the problem that I personally encountered when I was first wounded. They transported me and everyone else for 5 days. And please note, not to the Far East. Express trains, on the contrary, should let evacuation trains pass, because many of those being transported there require urgent medical care. But Russian Railways, as always, has its own priorities. This is not a one-off news item or incident. It has always been like this, but few people talk about it. Ukraine is undertaking its largest effort to build defensive fortifications since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. WSJ correspondents visited several of the new structures and shared their observations. According to the report, the program to reinforce the front line has been ongoing for 2 years. However, its progress has been repeatedly hindered by delays, shelling, and even arrests on suspicion of corruption. Over the past 18 months, Russian forces have broken through several weakly fortified sections of the front, exploiting unfinished defensive lines in the north. Ukraine now hopes a triple belt of fortifications will prevent similar breakthroughs in the east. The report notes that the first line of defense is typically built by infantry units, the second by engineering troops, and the third falls under the responsibility of local civilian administrations. These outermost defenses are intended to protect key cities and reinforce regional borders. The system is designed to stop the enemy before it can advance deep into Ukrainian territory. In 2024, Ukraine allocated more than $46 billion for fortification construction, nearly 2% of its total military budget. Officials say the actual amount is even higher, but precise figures have not been disclosed. With the front lines constantly shifting, some fortifications risk becoming obsolete before they are ever tested in battle. In 2022, the focus was primarily on long trenches to defend against artillery. Now the main threat is drones. Modern trenches are now being dug deeper and equipped with shelters for small units and command posts for drone operators. As Russia reduces its use of armored vehicles, it increasingly deploys small mobile groups on motorcycles or buggies. In response, Ukrainian forces are laying down dense networks of low-profile metal coils designed to slow down enemy troops and equipment, making them vulnerable to kamikaze drones. In June, it was reported that Ukrainian troops had shifted from building battalion and company-sized strongpoints to smaller positions intended for squad-level defense.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.